Welcome back for another deep dive. We asked you to share some firsthand accounts with us, and you guys came through with some truly creepy stories.
Yeah, they're all pretty spooky.
They all have one thing in common.
Thunderstorms.
That's right, thunderstorms. We've got 3 tales from the YouTube channel Mr. Nightmare to explore this time.
And we're going to try to figure out if wild weather makes these creepy experiences more likely, or if it's just our imaginations getting the best of us.
So our first story takes us to rural Florida. Picture this. You're 14 years old playing video games with your brothers.
Classic.
Classic stormy night. And boom, the power goes out.
Happens every time.
So of course, you got to go outside to help your dad with the fuse box in the pouring rain.
Of course. I mean, that setting already just, it makes me feel a little uneasy just thinking about it. Darkness, isolation, and, that feeling of vulnerability that a storm can bring out.
Yeah, and that feeling just intensifies because as he's out there shining the flashlight, the storyteller sees an arm dart behind a tree in the woods. Yeah, just an arm. His dad searches, but finds absolutely no one.
Oh, that's creepy.
And later that night, someone tries to break into the house.
See, that's where the psychological impact of the storm really comes into play. Darkness and that feeling of being isolated can really heighten your fear response. You just start to misinterpret what you see and hear.
Yeah, like that arm could have been a trick of the light, just amplified by his fear.
Right?
But here's the thing.
What?
The next morning, they discover a broken basement window, money and antiques are stolen, and there are footprints leading right up to the locked basement door.
Okay, so someone was definitely there, but was the arm an actual person, scoping out the place beforehand? Or did the storm just provide a perfect cover for a thief looking for an easy target?
Right, like they saw the lights go out and thought, perfect time to strike.
Exactly. And either way, it really highlights how a storm can make you feel so vulnerable. You're so preoccupied with the weather itself that you don't even realize the real dangers lurking around you.
So let's move on to our next story, this time from the Midwest. This listener was just enjoying a quiet night in, but then they start seeing flashes of lightning.
Ah.
But there's no thunder.
Silent lightning. I mean, it can happen when the lightning is so high in the atmosphere that the sound dissipates before it reaches the ground.
Yeah.
But still...
Yeah, it's unsettling, right?
Definitely. Especially on a dark night like that.
And those flashes of lightning reveal a figure standing right outside the window.
Whoa, hold on. See, now we're getting into some primal fear territory. The darkness, the isolation, it primes your brain for fear. Makes you way more likely to perceive threats, even when there might not actually be any.
So do you think it was a real person? Or just a case of their mind playing tricks?
I mean, without more information, it's impossible to say for sure. But that's what's so fascinating about these stories, right?
It's like we can't fully verify the details, so we're left to wonder.
Exactly. It really makes you think.
Are you ready for our final thunderstorm tale?
Hit me with it.
All right, so picture this. A teenager is spending the night at his creepy uncle's ranch during a massive thunderstorm.
Creepy uncle's ranch. Okay, I'm already hooked.
He's trying to ignore the booming thunder, but then he starts hearing this metallic thud.
A thud.
Yeah, and it's perfectly in rhythm with each lightning strike.
Oh, that is so clever. The way the storyteller uses sound. It's not just the natural sounds of the storm, but there's this unnatural rhythmic element cutting through it. Instant chills.
And of course, to make it even more unsettling, the thud seems to be getting closer with each strike.
Oh.
He can't take it anymore. He peeks out the window and sees a figure dressed in black trying to break into the basement.
The basement. I mean, talk about a classic horror movie trope, right?
Yeah.
Why the basement, though? Was it just an easy target, or was there something else that drew the intruder there?
He doesn't wait to find out. He immediately runs to tell his uncle.
Good move.
But when he turns back to the window,
Uh-oh.
the figure's staring right back at him.
Oh, my God.
It's terrifying, for sure. But it also begs the question, was this figure a real threat or just a hallucination brought on by stress and fear? That feeling of being trapped.
Well, I mean, we know that extreme stress can trigger hallucinations, especially when you feel trapped and vulnerable like this teenager definitely was. But then you have the very real evidence of the attempted break-in, which is hard to dismiss as just his imagination.
Right. Like you said, these stories really are giving me chills, and we're only just getting started.
They really tap into that primal fear of the unknown, and the fact that they all happen during thunderstorms just adds another layer of intrigue. It makes you question what's real and what's not.
We've only just scratched the surface. So let's move on to part 2, and we'll delve a bit deeper into some of the common threads and possible explanations for why thunderstorms and spooky events seem to go hand in hand.
Welcome back.
I'm still thinking about that figure in the basement.
Yeah, and that metallic thud.
It just gives me chills.
Yeah.
It's like the storm is more than just a setting for these stories. It becomes this like active element that heightens the tension and the fear.
Exactly, like that silent lightning, the lack of thunder, the unexpected flashes, it just creates this sense of anticipation.
Like something is about to happen.
Like something is lurking just out of sight.
And then in the Florida story, the storm provides cover for the thief.
Right.
But it also creates that sense of isolation and vulnerability.
It really does.
So speaking of vulnerability,
Yeah.
let's talk about how our perceptions can change during these intense weather events.
Okay.
Psychologically, we know that storms can trigger anxiety
Right.
and heighten our senses.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that can make us more likely to misinterpret what we're seeing and hearing.
So some of these experiences, like the figure outside the window,
Uh-huh.
could just be hallucinations brought on by stress and fear.
Absolutely. I mean, our brains are wired to look for patterns, right? We're trying to make sense of the world around us. So in a chaotic situation like a thunderstorm, our minds might start filling in the blanks.
And creating threats that aren't actually there.
Exactly.
But then we have the attempted break-in and the stolen goods,
Yeah.
which pretty hard to explain away as just hallucinations.
You've got a point there. And that's what makes this whole thing even more interesting, because there's actually a theory that electromagnetic fields, or EMFs,
Yeah, you mentioned EMFs earlier.
yeah, and those are generated by storms, and some people think they might have a subtle effect on our brain activity.
Can you talk a little bit more about EMFs?
Yeah, so EMFs are these invisible fields of energy that surround all electrical devices, and they're also naturally present in the Earth's atmosphere. But during a thunderstorm, the electrical discharges happening within the clouds amplify these fields.
So it's like the storm is cranking up the voltage on these EMFs that are always around us.
That's a great way to put it.
Okay, so then what? What do these EMFs do to us?
Well, there's some research that suggests that exposure to high levels of EMFs can affect the brain.
In what way?
Well, potentially leading to hallucinations, feelings of unease, and even altered states of consciousness.
Okay, so is it possible that the storm itself, through these EMFs, could be directly influencing these people's perceptions?
It's a really fascinating area of research.
Or maybe even triggering these visions or sounds?
Yeah, and it's definitely a possibility. We know that EMFs can interact with the human body, and some scientists believe they could be influencing our perceptions and experiences in ways we don't fully understand yet.
That's incredible.
Yeah. There have even been studies linking EMFs to temporal lobe seizures, which can cause all sorts of unusual sensory experiences.
Really?
Yeah.
But what are the cultural side of things? Like so many cultures have folklore and myths that connect storms to supernatural events or beings.
Oh, absolutely. It's amazing how those ancient beliefs persist even in our modern scientific world. The idea of storm gods, spirits that ride the lightning, it all speaks to our deep-seated need to explain the unexplainable, to find meaning in events that challenge our understanding of the natural world.
Right. It makes you wonder if there could be a grain of truth hidden within those ancient tales. Like, were these stories based on real experiences? Did they sense something genuinely unusual happening during these powerful events?
It's a really thought-provoking possibility. And even if we set aside the paranormal for a second, there's still the very real psychological impact of storms to consider. They evoke really powerful emotions: awe, fear, vulnerability, and those emotions can stick with us long after the storm has passed.
And then those emotions can affect our memories.
Right.
Leading us to maybe exaggerate or even fabricate details when we retell these stories.
Exactly, because we're storytellers by nature, right? We often shape our narratives to fit our own understanding of the world, especially when we're dealing with events that are difficult to comprehend.
So some details might be exaggerated or unconsciously altered over time,
Yeah.
but that doesn't negate the clear emotional truth of these stories.
Right.
The fear,
Vulnerability.
the feeling that something strange and unsettling happened during those thunderstorms. So where do we go from here? We've looked at psychology, the potential impact of EMFs, and even considered the possibility of the paranormal.
Yeah, it's a lot.
What's the takeaway from all of this?
Well, I think the biggest takeaway is that these stories, these experiences, they persist because there's still so much mysteries surrounding thunderstorms.
Yeah.
They represent the unknown, the uncontrollable.
And that can be both exhilarating and terrifying.
Absolutely. And that's what makes this topic so intriguing, right? It pushes us to think beyond the ordinary, to consider that there might be more to the world than we can see or explain.
It really does.
Maybe those thunderstorms, with their power and unpredictability, they actually offer us a glimpse into those hidden realms, those unexplained corners of our reality.
It's a really cool thought.
Yeah,
And it's definitely something we'll continue to explore in the final part of our deep dive. We'll be looking at some real-life cases, historical accounts, and even more scientific research that might offer a little more insight into the connection between thunderstorms and the unexplained. All right, so we're back for the final part of our deep dive into these spooky thunderstorm experiences.
and we're going to try to wrap things up, tie a nice little bow on it.
Yeah, but before we do that,
Yeah.
I think we need to acknowledge the historical and cultural context surrounding thunderstorms.
Absolutely. I mean, for centuries, storms have been viewed with this mix of awe and fear.
Yeah, like almost every culture has myths and legends about storm gods and spirits that ride the lightning.
Oh, yeah.
It's incredible how these beliefs have persisted throughout history.
I think it really speaks to the profound impact that storms have on the human psyche.
Yeah, like that raw power of nature.
Oh, absolutely. This force that can both create and destroy, and that sense of awe and fear, I think it makes us more receptive to the idea of something beyond the ordinary happening during a storm.
Yeah, it's like they were trying to explain something they couldn't quite grasp.
Exactly. They were trying to make sense of these really powerful events and the strange experiences that people reported during those times.
And it really makes you wonder if there's a grain of truth hidden within those ancient tales. Like,
Okay.
could those stories be based on real experiences? On people sensing something genuinely unusual happening during these events?
Well, it's a fascinating question, and it's actually one that some researchers are starting to explore.
Really? So there's actual scientific research looking into the connection between thunderstorms and unusual phenomena.
Yeah, it's a pretty new area of study, but there are some interesting findings starting to emerge.
Okay, I'm really curious now.
So as we discussed earlier, thunderstorms generate those really powerful EMFs.
Yeah.
And some studies suggest that exposure to high levels of those can have a range of effects on the human body and mind.
We talked about hallucinations and altered states of consciousness, but what other effects are there?
Well, some evidence suggests that EMFs can actually influence things like our sleep patterns, hormone levels, and even our cognitive function.
Really?
Yeah. And some people report feeling things like anxiety, agitation, or even disorientation after exposure to strong EMFs.
So there's still a lot we don't know about EMFs.
Oh, absolutely. There's a lot we don't understand about how they interact with our biology.
But the research suggests that there's a real possibility that thunderstorms, with their intense electromagnetic activity, could be influencing our experiences in ways we haven't fully grasped yet.
Right, exactly.
It's just incredible to think that something as ordinary as a thunderstorm could have such a profound impact on us.
I know, right?
It really challenges our understanding of the world.
Yeah, it kind of opens up this whole realm of possibilities. What if those ancient stories about storms being gateways to other realms weren't entirely far-fetched?
Yeah.
What if those intense EMFs are somehow interacting with our consciousness or even allowing us to perceive things that are normally hidden from view?
That's a really mind-blowing concept.
Yeah, but even if we set aside those more speculative ideas for a second, there's still the very real possibility that EMFs are playing a role in these strange experiences that people report during thunderstorms.
So as our understanding of EMS grows,
Yeah,
we might actually start to unravel some of these mysteries behind these spooky encounters.
I think so.
So we've come to the end of our deep dive.
Yeah.
We've explored the psychological effects of storms, the potential influence of EMFs, and even touched on the possibility of other realms and dimensions.
We really went there.
We did.
And while we might not have definitive answers to all the questions we raised today, I think we can agree that thunderstorms hold a unique place in our collective consciousness.
They inspire awe, fear, and a sense of wonder that just keeps us coming back for more.
And, just maybe, they offer a glimpse into something beyond our ordinary understanding of the world.
It's certainly a thought-provoking idea.
It really is.
So, thanks for joining us on this electrifying journey into the spooky side of thunderstorms.
Yeah, thanks for listening, everybody. Stay curious, stay skeptical, and most importantly, stay safe out there.